Hey guys! While I was away from YouTube, a lot of the questions that I received was regarding languages, and this topic has a lot to consider. And so I divided the video up into 3 different parts. Now, without further ado, this is part 1 of language profile, language skill requirements from different airlines, and why. Each destination for a flight will have a minimum number of language speaker requirement in order to operate, and this is a safety and security issue. In case of an emergency, there needs to be that one communicator that would be able to communicate with the passengers, make a public announcement, which I will be calling PA from now on, and things like that. It's not only emergency when a plane is about to crash, because that rarely happens. There are so many things that can go wrong on an aircraft that might harm the safety of the passengers. Not deadly, but like sickness, things falling, people smoking, etc. and etc. Depending on the passenger's profile, however, more language speakers can be added onto the flight. During the pilgrimage season, there are a lot of Indonesian passengers who don't speak English. In that case, a lot more crew who speak Indonesian will be added onto the flight to help with the situation. However, a flight from Dubai to Bali is a different case because most passengers are visitors and travelers, vacationers from the western side of the world, and so they most generally speak English, and having extra Indonesian crew is unnecessary. We rather have that crew help out with a Jakarta flight than a Bali flight. With that being said, there will always be at least one Arabic speaker on Emirates flight. Now, due to system failure or cabin crew, the language speaker calling in sick, and just life happening, sometimes there might be a situation where they don't have the language speaker required to get this flight on air. In that case, Emirates will have crew on reserve, on standby, who can be called out for the flight. And if that's not available too, then they will find an Indonesian speaking crew or a language speaking crew and do a switcheroo and try to figure things out. This is one of the main reasons why international airlines hire from all around the world. However, the execution might be a little bit different depending on the airline. So for example, as a Korean, if I were to work for a Korean airline, then I would be based in Korea and yet be scheduled to travel all around the world. Now, if I wanted to work for an airline that's not in Korea, I would generally be given a chance to do Seoul and that country's flight. So example, if I worked for a airline in France, I would do France, Korea, Korea, France, just that. But here is where Emirates become really charming, and some of the Middle Eastern airlines become really charming because you are moved to live in Dubai, but not only do Korea-Dubai flights, but to fly all around the world. And I'm not saying this is like the best situation possible, because it's not. It really depends on what floats your boat. And once people get married, they move into a different airline to settle down, have a home to go back to, and situation may vary. But when you're young and you want to be free, you want to travel, actually you don't even have to be young. If you want to be free, you want to travel, try living in Dubai and just travel all around the world and have that unique experience, then the Middle Eastern airline, especially Emirates, is the airline for you. So when Emirates is hiring, unlike other airlines that might require you to speak their language, for example, I know for a fact that the airlines in France require you to speak French. I also know that for KLM, they don't expect the cabin crew, the foreign cabin crews, to be able to speak Dutch. So it really depends on the airline. But for Emirates, they require you to speak English. As long as you speak English, you have a chance to be hired. Even if you only speak English, you have a chance to be hired. Even as an Arabic speaker, you have to be able to speak English in order to be hired. Now, knowing another language is a big brownie point, and it does help you out, stand out during the final interview, but it's not a huge deal to the point where it's a game changer. And be really, really wise in declaring a language, because once you get the job and you said you speak a certain language, that language will follow you in your portfolio. And later on, if you want to take it out, it's not going to look pretty, because the fact that you took out that language is also going to stay in your portfolio. And you might ask, well, if that's the only thing, what's the big deal? Security. Here we are, full circle. Remember how I said there's a number of language speakers required on the flight, but it's sometimes just the bare minimum? Let's say I said I spoke Chinese, and it shows on my record. but I am not that very good at it, and an emergency situation happened and I have to communicate in Chinese, but I don't know Chinese that well, and it becomes like a whole issue where I only know like a little bit to communicate a little bit, but when it comes to medical situation or emergency situation, I'm not that good at it, and it just becomes an awkward situation and it becomes oops, uh-oh. So unless you really know the language, I recommend be very wise on how you declare it. And honestly speaking, my language skill only came up, my ability to speak, maybe I don't speak at all. My ability to speak Indonesian only came up during my final interview, where it was a question to be asked for the interviewer. So it was like a good story point where I could talk about how I grew up in an international setting, I understand the Indonesian culture and like the religion, and I know how to respect it, and I understand the Western culture because I grew up with them, and just, you know, have this whole beautiful story about how international and cabin crew ready I am. Boy, was I wrong, because when I became a cabin crew, my world was very, very small, and I realized that after I started flying, and that's a different video, a different story, and I guess that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, because a part 2 will be coming out soon, and for that reason, please like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit that bell button, because I don't really upload regularly, but I'm trying to. So yeah, again, thank you for watching, and bye!